Hi, my name is Marina Fisher. I worked at the ISV engineering organization at Sun, and today we're going to see a couple of demos demonstrating interoperability between Java and .NET. The first scenario that we're going to see is interoperability with the web services that communicate to the AJAX client using REST-style web services protocol and exchanging POX, plain old XML data. The second demo that we're going to see is based on the traditional SOAP over HTTP communication between the web services and the client. So now let's take a look at the demo. Let's take a look at the Microsoft environment. We have Microsoft Visual Studio, where we're going to build our first web service using the Windows Communication Foundation classes. The first demo, as I mentioned earlier, will show how the AJAX client communicate with the web service, .NET web service, using REST and POX. So in order to achieve that, there are really three components that you need to keep in mind when building that web service. First of all, you need to have a contract, service contract. In our case, it's called iMyService. Second thing is you need to have the class, in our case, MyService, that implements that interface. And finally, you need to define the behavior of this class, which is specified in the web.config through the system.serviceModel tag. As you can see here, the web.config file looks slightly different from our traditional .NET applications that is not built with Windows Communication Foundation. There is a binding, like custom binding configuration, POX binding, which is plain old XML binding, and those bindings are defined down below. So at this point in time, since we have service ready, and all it does is simply returns as a time string, we're going to go ahead and build and start the service. So we can look at the service, and we want to make sure that it's up and running before we start building our client. And as you can see, it returns us an XML string with the time specified between the tags. So now we're ready to move on to the Java environment, where we're going to be using a JMonkey plugin for NetBeans, and you can download the plugin on the Sun website. And all we're going to do here is we're going to build a simple site here with the JavaScript, and the main part of it is including the reference to our .NET service. So here we're invoking jmonkey.ajax method, and we're providing the URL for our application. And then, as you can see at the end of the URL, we're specifying the XHP, which is an XML HTTP request class that provides us access to the external services so that we can go around the web browser security sandbox and access outside services. And then we see question mark key equal local time. So local time is specified in the JSON format in the XML, in the xhp.json. And those are the services that we may want to invoke. So we're providing all this information about the services within this file in the JSON format. And as we scroll down, we have the ID, under ID local time, a URL that is associated with our .NET service. So, and that we already tested the service, so now we're ready to test this simple JMonkey AJAX application. So let's run the project, and we'll see the application that is up and running. So we inserted the table, which is one of many components that come with JMonkey, but our get time here is in the essence invoking that .NET service that we have just demonstrated. So just to recap, what we've done is we've built a web service using the .NET framework on the Microsoft environment, and then we build an AJAX client using JMIC from within the NetBeans, and we have achieved interoperability between the two in a very simple way here. So that's as simple as it gets in terms of building your mashup applications, which are popular in the Web 2.0 world, and you can use, as you can see here, all kinds of components from Dojo, or there are Google components, Flickr components, and so forth. So this is the first part of the demo. The second part that we're going to focus on, we'll talk about interoperability with the traditional SOAP-based integration, because in a lot of cases, enterprises have their services that have been implemented and deployed, and you still have to access them from within your client application. So if that's the case, let's see how to achieve that interoperability. So in the Microsoft Visual Studio, we have another project that we're going to open, and again, it's this is our traditional kind of a web method where we're defining the web service, and all it does, again, returns the time. Very simple service, so we may want to try to run it before getting to the client invocation. So now we're testing the service. Here is our service, and we want to invoke it, and here we get a time back. So now let's get back to the NetBeans IDE, and what we need to do here is we're going to create, we'll have the project, and we're going to create the client that basically invokes that .NET service. So let me expand the window. So this is a standard template. Again, we're building it with JMIC. So there is a JavaScript, and the thing is that that Sun provides you from within the IDE is ability to include and import the web service without doing a whole lot of programming. So all you need to do is click on your project, say Add Web Service Client, and then you provide either the WSDL URL or the local file for the WSDL, the package name, and it automatically creates for you an entry under the project called Web Service Reference, which what I've done, and it references your web service. So at this point in time, all I need to do is really drag and drop that service into my application, and well, because I already, but this is the auto-generated code that corresponds to this service that you don't have to write from scratch, and instead the IDE generates those client artifacts for you. And we're going to simply print the result here, and the result is basically an invocation of our Hello World .NET service. So let's try to run this application and see what comes out. So this is basically an application that invokes that .NET time service, and if we can, reload it, you can see that it reads the system time, which is 2:56, and you can compare it with the computer time. And the good thing about the IDE, you can go ahead and change things within your environment. For example, in the sidebar goes here. I can go ahead and maybe drop a tree component here, Dojo tree, and all I need to do is to save and then reload the page without redeploying anything, and then we should be able to see the tree. So it's as easy as that. So if you have multiple services, maybe .NET remoting, .NET services, or maybe other services from eBay or Google or what have you, and you want to integrate them, you can just update your client and just save it and reload from within the browser. So that pretty much concludes the second portion of the demo, where we've seen how to achieve interoperability from within the AJAX application, talking to the .NET over traditional SOAP protocol.